start first by just talking about like the landscape of tourism and travel, and how that's changed in the last couple of years. There's so much that's happening, not even right now domestically, but also internationally, and how that's affected what you do.
Yeah. So I could speak from the perspective of the U.S. Department of State.
Yes, please.
And our view of travel comes from domestically, we know how many people are applying for passports, and we know how many people have passports.
Yes.
We don't necessarily check how many people are using them. But from issuance, our numbers have been going up considerably.
Okay.
For the past, I'd say, 10 years. There was a dip around the recession. So the numbers started really going up in 2007, 2008, when the United States changed our passport laws and required U.S. citizens to have passports when returning to the U.S. from Canada, Mexico, and the Caribbean. So if you remember that, before potentially coming across the border from Mexico, you would just be able to say, I'm American, and they'd let you through.
Right.
In 2007, 2008, they started enforcing a new law. It's called the Western Hemisphere Travel Initiative, and that made people present a passport when returning to the United States. So that really increased passport issuance. So our numbers increased considerably in between 2007 and 2009. Then the recession hit. Numbers kind of dipped, but then I believe it was around 2012, 13, they started going up again. To last year, 2019, we issued the most passports ever. In the history of the U.S. passport, we issued over 21 million passports, which is a big number.
Yeah.
So, compared to the U.S. population, when you do the math, about just under, I believe it's over just under half of the population has a passport. So numbers last year were very high. They were the highest ever. We're still on track to issuing about 20 million passports this year, which is still a lot of passports. So what does that tell us? I mean, we can't trace exactly what drives those numbers. You can say anecdotally that there's more people wanting to travel. There's more people who are maybe applying for citizenship and then getting passports. But in general, I mean, when you think about it, you look at the whole travel industry, the world is very accessible these days. And you could find a travel deal very easily. There's a lot of direct flights from a lot of U.S. destinations. And I think maybe, this is my own personal opinion, with social media and just more communication, people are more interested and find international travel more accessible. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
You look at Instagram and you see all these
Right.
you see all these inspirational posts,
Right.
crystal blue waters, and you want to go discover the world.
Mm-hmm.
So there aren't many barriers for Americans traveling abroad. I mean, there's economic barriers. You do have to pay for a passport, pay for an airline ticket, but the process for getting that stuff is really accessible to a lot of Americans these days. So I think that's why you see an uptick perhaps in travel. And so that's on the domestic side. And then on the outside of the United States, we have embassies and consulates all around the world.
Right.
So the U.S. mission abroad is to, represent the United States, but it's also to protect Americans. So my bureau, the Bureau of Consular Affairs, staffs consulates and embassies with officials like myself who are there to help Americans when they're not inside the United States borders.
Right.
So if there's an emergency, if there's some sort of service they need, their point of contact is us at an embassy or consulate. We are also the point of contact when there's an emergency, or if a passport gets stolen, or if there's a death, or if there's an emergency evacuation because of a hurricane, or because of a tsunami, some disaster. We are the points of contact for Americans in need. So we offer a bunch of services to Americans while you're abroad. And I don't have specific numbers, but I could just tell you that we are very busy around the world. A lot of Americans are traveling. A lot of people lose passports or maybe get robbed while abroad. or maybe passports expire and they need to approach us for different services.
Right.
And thankfully, well, I'll just tell you that I believe it was Hurricane Maria and Irma that went through the Caribbean resulted in evacuations. So in those instances, we had, I'll tell you from my own personal experience, there's medical schools down in the Caribbean where there was a lot of American students. We had to assist with the evacuation of the students because we could see from all the forecasts that the hurricanes were going to put certain islands in danger. And so my colleagues, part of the United States Department of State, our duty was to help those schools evacuate all these students. For lack of commercial flights, for various reasons. There were chartered flights that we took down to these islands to evacuate students, and that is our role as the U.S. Department of State.
Okay, and with everything that you just said, are there any trends that have yet to happen that you obviously you don't know for sure it's going to happen, but you have a guess that it's the next thing that may come to pass based on the trends that you're seeing, especially with the increase of passports?
I think with more people traveling, I think what you could potentially foresee are a lot of inexperienced travelers going abroad. So whether or not that's going to result in, hopefully that nothing bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
But it just means that, the more information that's available domestically before they leave is going to be probably more useful and should be, so what I'm saying is I think people should really utilize the information that they have access to about safety and security in other countries before they leave the country. You want to be a prepared traveler. You want to travel safe. You want to know what to do. You want to be you want to be well equipped to either find information or find assistance from the U.S. government, or at least have an idea of what to do if there's an instance, an instance abroad where you need assistance. You need to at least do a little bit of research, I think. So to answer your question, I think there's probably going to be, just based on the quantity of passports that we're issuing, I think there's probably going to be a lot of inexperienced travelers, maybe younger travelers, who want to explore and have adventure. That's all good, but doing it in an informed way is I think much better for everyone. It means safer travel for the person traveling, and then it also means that we don't have to intervene, which is good for us.
Makes it easier, right?
Makes it easier for everyone. So that's why on our website, travel.state.gov, we have country profiles, where you could look up a country and you can find out very useful information from what you need, if you need a visa or not, to health and safety information. But then there's also travel advisories, which we issue. Travel advisories that we issue for each country in the world are on a level 1 through 4.
Right, I remember you mentioned, yeah.
So level 1 is proceed as you normally would. This would, a level 1 travel advisory is a country that really doesn't have, there has not been any major issues that we want you to know about. Level 2 is increased caution. So one example of a level 2 country is Mexico. Mexico is, I believe it's the #1 destination of Americans. And so it's at a level 2, and that's mainly because of crime. Crime is found throughout Mexico at increased levels that we just want Americans to know about. Now, Mexico is kind of interesting because it is a large country, and within the country we actually have a level 3 and level 4, meaning level 3 is rethink travel, and then level 4 is please do not travel. But we actually have states, specific locations within Mexico where we recommend you don't travel to, mainly because of crime and violence. So we issue these travel advisories for every country in the world, and we would love for people to at least read about them before they leave the United States to prevent issues, and so they are fully prepared to make decisions when they leave the United States.
Okay, and is that what you were talking about of how like one state has a higher level of like security? Is that the norm, or that you find elsewhere, or was that just the exception?
Well, I think Mexico is very unique because geography.
Yeah.
It's right next door.
Yes.
You can get there by car. You can get there by foot. You can just walk over the border.
Yeah.
You can get there by boat. You can get there by plane. It's also a very large country, very, very, very diverse country. And I think there are some specific issues within Mexico that create the need for us to issue different travel advisories within the country. So as a whole, it's a level 2. But there are specific cities where we've seen, violent crime or just violence in general, where we look at the numbers, we look at the crime statistics, and we get information from our people on the ground, and the recommendation is, you know what, let's tell Americans not to go here because it's just too dangerous.
Okay.
That's not the same case as other countries. Another country I looked up recently, I believe, was Iceland. It's at a level 1. It's not the same level or same category of country. Each country is very, very different. Yeah, very unique.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. All right, well, there you guys have it. I'm here at the Travel Adventure Show. I'll see you soon.